Karen's HOA patrol tried to cuff me. My deputies showed up behind them. They didn't knock. They kicked the gate open. That was their first mistake. The second, trying to arrest the sheriff on his own land. Name's Thomas Ray Halstead, sheriff of Fannin County, Texas. Population 12,000, give or take. And I've been wearing the badge for 13 years. Before that Army MP, before that just a ranch kid who knew the value of a handshake and a boundary line. 3 months ago, I bought a fixer-upper farmhouse just outside a private development called Evergreen Crest. Big gates, shiny sidewalks, HOA with too much attitude. I didn't move into the crest just next to it. County property, no ties, no dues. But to some people, especially ones with laminated authority, proximity feels like ownership. I first met Karen Tisdale, president of the Evergreen Crest Neighborhood Enrichment Council, when I was clearing some brush from the old fence line. She pulled up in a white BMW with tinted windows and a clipboard. "You'll need to submit an exterior modification request for that fence," she said, without introducing herself. I paused, sweat dripping off my brow. "This is county land. Ma'am, no HOA here." She blinked, twice, then smiled the kind of smile that tells you she thinks you're an idiot. "We'll see about that." The first citation came in a glossy envelope. Unauthorized vehicle storage, $275 fine. I ignored it. Then came a noise ordinance violation for letting my dogs out at dawn, followed by a warning for visual contamination due to my tractor being visible from the crest entrance. Each letter more absurd than the last, each one unsigned. I kept every single one, quiet, patient, watchful. Then the fake cops showed up. It was a Sunday. Claire, my niece, was visiting with her kids. We were roasting hot dogs out back when I saw the black SUV pull up, HOA compliance enforcement magnet slapped on the side. Two men in dark blue uniforms stepped out, combat boots, radios, plastic holsters. They walked right up to the porch like they owned the place. "You Thomas Halstead," one asked. "I am. You're in violation of Community Code 14B, failure to comply with repeated notices. You're being detained pending board review." I blinked, then laughed. That was mistake number 3, because they actually tried to put hands on me. And that's when everything changed. The second the man's hand touched my wrist, I pivoted, quick, smooth, decisive. I didn't reach for my gun. I didn't have to. Just broke the grip, pushed him back a step, and let my voice drop low and clear. "You just assaulted a sworn officer of the law." His partner froze. The guy who grabbed me scoffed. "You, officer, you're standing on non-compliant soil. Buddy, we're HOA patrol. We have jurisdiction." I slowly pulled the leather case from my back pocket and flipped it open. Sheriff's badge, gold, official, real. The look on his face, priceless. Claire came around the side of the house, holding her phone up. She'd been filming since the moment they stepped on the property. The kids stood behind her, quiet but wide-eyed. "You're being recorded," she said flatly. "And you're trespassing." The taller of the two men must have fancied himself the commander tried to regroup. "We were given direct orders by the Evergreen Crest Security Subcommittee. This land falls under our visual easement zone. Your presence and activity violate Section 14B of the Covenant Charter." I chuckled. Visual easement zone. That's a fancy way of saying delusional power grab. Let me make this simple. You're not officers. You're impersonators. And right now, you're in my jurisdiction. I pulled my radio and called it in. "Unit 1 to dispatch. Need 2 units out to County Route 112 Northeast Edge. We've got impersonation of law enforcement and attempted unlawful detention." The commanders didn't run. They postured like fake cops do, hands near their belts, puffed chests, but their bravado was unraveling by the second. "Sir," one said, "there's no need to escalate. We're just enforcing our bylaws." I stepped closer. "Your bylaws don't apply here. This is county land. You are trespassing. You are not licensed law enforcement. And now you're going to wait here while real officers show you what that means." The patrol units rolled in under 5 minutes. Deputy Klein stepped out first. She took one look at the scene and raised a brow. These the HOA Avengers. Yep, I said. Tried to cuff me in front of my niece. The fake officers went pale. One muttered something about just doing what Karen told us. We detained them both on site. I let my deputies do the talking. Claire turned off her phone and walked the kids back inside, but not before whispering, "You're going viral tonight." Uncle Tom. Later, at the station. We pulled the threads. Turns out their names were Eric Blaine and Todd Mendez. Neither had law enforcement training. Both were recruited by a woman named Karen Tisdale under something called the Evergreen Crest Civic Enforcement Initiative, a self-funded HOA program that dressed civilians in tactical gear and told them they had arrest powers. I didn't laugh anymore. Not after seeing their gear up close. Replica cuffs, pepper spray, badge holders printed off Etsy, clipboards full of fake citations, styled to look like sheriff's paperwork. But it was the black binder labeled targeted properties that made my stomach turn. Inside were printed profiles of dozens of residents' photos, addresses, infractions, and ratings. Ratings. I flipped to the back. My property was marked with a red triangle. Note high resistance, possible retaliation, must handle carefully. The next morning, I walked into the Evergreen Crest HOA board meeting. They didn't know I was coming. They met every Tuesday in the community center clubhouse, crystal chandeliers, overstuffed chairs, and a massive mahogany table like they were running a Fortune 500 company. Karen Tisdale sat at the head, smug in a navy suit, sipping sparkling water. I stood in uniform. Karen Tisdale, I need you to step outside. Now. She looked up, smile faltering. Sheriff Halstead, we're in a private session. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, I held up the binder, flipped it open, dropped it in front of her. Her eyes widened. You authorized this, I asked. You told these men to arrest residents, issue fake citations. You created a fake patrol silence? A few board members fidgeted. One looked ready to bolt. Karen tried to speak. We were trying to maintain order. There's been a lot of non-conforming behavior lately. I leaned forward. You're not law enforcement, and you sure as hell don't get to play one in your neighborhood fantasy club. You sent men with weapons onto my land. You crossed every line. She was arrested on the spot. Charges conspiracy to impersonate law enforcement, criminal solicitation, fraud, and reckless endangerment. The board dissolved their initiative within 24 hours, but I knew this went deeper. The binder mentioned approved regional zones. I wasn't the only target. It started with 2 imposters and a clipboard. But the deeper we dug, the clearer it became. Karen's stunt wasn't a rogue HOA power trip, it was a franchise operation. After Karen's arrest, we secured warrants to search her home and personal accounts. Inside her garage, a makeshift supply hub, 5 sets of tactical vests embroidered with Civic Patrol, Southwest Region, a printer loaded with badge laminates, a list of HOA presidents and neighborhood enforcers across 4 counties, a whiteboard with zip codes labeled Hot Week Sheriff Presence, and a locked file cabinet labeled Licensed Partners. Deputy Ramos cracked the cabinet. Inside were folders titled Maple Ridge Ops, Silver Creek Compliance, Whitetail Covenant Enforcement, Garden Way Watch Force, Surda. Each folder detailed the same formula. Identify rural or unincorporated homes adjacent to HOA zones. Send courtesy violations with intimidating legal phrasing. Send patrol officers in uniform to collect fines or issue warnings. Flag any resistance for escalation. And the kicker, each partner paid a monthly access fee to Karen Shell, LLC Civic Order, Network Services, Inc. It was an HOA shakedown pyramid scheme. I convened a meeting with district attorneys from 3 counties. We formed a joint task force and looped in the state attorney general. The investigation widened. Turns out, Karen had been quietly training HOA boards across rural Texas on localized code enforcement. She sold it as a neighborhood protection plan. Some believed her, some wanted the power, all ignored the law. The press caught wind. Sheriff uncovers fake HOA police ring. Operating across counties, Texas, neighborhoods rocked by rogue civic patrol. Takedown who's policing the HOA cops. I didn't do interviews. I didn't want the spotlight. But people started showing up at the sheriff's office, residents clutching envelopes, scared seniors with boxes of fake fines. Even one teenager whose father had been threatened for refusing to cut down a tree, marked invasive by a man with no credentials. What stunned me most, one man from a town 2 counties over walked in, shook my hand, and said, "Sheriff Halstead, we didn't even know they weren't real. We made arrests in Maple Ridge, Whitetail, and Garden Way. One group had a decommissioned police cruiser repainted with Neighborhood Defense Unit. Another had installed a fake checkpoint gate across a shared county road, charging non-resident fees to pass through. But the worst in Silver Creek, a veteran in his 70s had been forcibly removed from his own backyard by 2 officers after refusing to move his barbecue pit. They broke his arm. He thought they were real cops. That case broke me. I drove out to see him. His name was Charles. Air Force, 1969 to 1983. 3 tours. Now he sat in a lawn chair, one arm in a sling, the other holding a citation marked Emergency Zone Violation, Level 2. He looked at me and said, "I survived enemy fire. Didn't expect to get assaulted over brisket. We moved fast, filed over 30 charges across 6 individuals, shut down 10 LLCs, froze 6 bank accounts. The civic order network gone. Karen denied bail, but the fear still lived in people's eyes. So we launched Project Real Badge, a public awareness initiative to teach people how to spot real law enforcement credentials, how to verify an HOA's legal jurisdiction, and how to report impersonation. We held town halls and we printed guides. We gave people back the truth. Then, something unexpected happened. A group of former HOA members came forward. One of them, Margot Hernandez, a board president from Maple Ridge, testified that she'd been manipulated by Karen. She told us the sheriff was too busy, that if we didn't take control, our neighborhood would fall apart. I believed her, until she asked us to buy pepper spray and blackout SUVs. The dominoes kept falling. We traced Karen's funding back to a property management firm in Houston, which had partnered with her to roll out compliance pilot programs, emails, contracts, kickbacks. This wasn't a Karen tantrum anymore. It was a full-on corruption syndicate. I sat across from Karen during a final deposition before the grand jury hearing. She wore county orange, no clipboard, no smug smile. She leaned in and said, "You don't get it, Sheriff. People liked it. They liked feeling powerful." I stared back and said, "Not when that power comes wrapped in lies and plastic badges." The deeper we dug, the more disturbing it got. Karen wasn't a fluke. She was a prototype. Her fake HOA enforcement network was the storefront. Behind it stood a much older, quieter machine, a coalition of for-profit property management firms, private security contractors, and HOA development boards, all quietly pushing one agenda: privatized authority. When we raided the Houston offices of Civic Compliance Solutions, LLC, we found what we'd feared: draft charters for dozens of proposed HOA patrol units in 5 different states, training manuals titled Neighborhood Command Protocols, a software dashboard called HOGuard, a platform that tracked violations, profiles, payment histories, and behavioral threat levels. It wasn't enforcement, it was surveillance as business, and Karen was their field experiment. She had given them proof of concept: start with fearful communities, use coded language, preserve property values, maintain standards, restore neighborhood safety, target the fringe homes, the ones near county lines, outside city zoning, issue warnings, collect small fees, then escalate, create fake patrols, introduce visual deterrence, and when no one stops you, expand. We subpoenaed internal communications. One email from a project manager at CCS read: "The sheriff's arrest set us back. Rebrand to Civic Safety Alliance and scrub names tied to Kepler. Resume ops in Q4. They weren't shutting down. They were shifting tactics." I went public. This time, not from a podium. We held a town rally. Claire helped organize it. She's not a kid anymore. She's been through too much for that. She stood beside me as I took the mic under an open sky. Dozens of neighbors seated on folding chairs. More watching online. You've seen the letters. You've seen the uniforms. Some of you were threatened. Some of you paid. Some of you stayed quiet, thinking you were alone. I paused, scanned their faces. You weren't. You aren't. And you won't be ever again. Not in this county. Not while I wear this badge. Applause roared through the field. Some people cried. Others stood silently, hands over hearts. And in the back row, Charles the veteran with the broken arm nodded once, slow and proud. That rally lit a match. Project Real Badge expanded statewide. By the end of the month, 7 new state laws were proposed in the legislature. HOA impersonation became a felony. Private enforcement units were banned without formal licensing. And property fines could no longer be issued without oversight from a registered county office. They called it the Kepler Reformation Act. I called it barely catching up to common sense. Meanwhile, the grand jury returned indictments for 15 individuals tied to the HOA fraud ring. Karen was charged under federal RICO statutes. Civic Compliance Solutions dissolved within a week. Their CEO resigned, their assets frozen, their files, evidence. But the part that still sticks with me, 2 days after the indictments dropped, I got a letter in the mail, no return address. Inside was a folded piece of paper, typed, simple. We didn't lose. We just got noticed. Real authority lives where no one looks. C.O. C.O. Civic Order. Karen's initials, or someone else doesn't matter, because I'm still looking. We established a regional property oversight task force, not just for this county, for every rural line they ever tried to blur. And we started training real deputies to spot signs of impersonation, fake fines, and private intimidation tactics. Because power unmasked still leaves shadows. Then came the sentencing hearing. Karen was last to speak. She stood still stubborn, still defiant, and said, I built structure where your systems failed. I gave people rules. I gave them something to follow. I stood. I don't care if people followed. I care if they trusted. And you stole that. Every threat, every fake citation, every staged patrol, you didn't just break the law. You broke belief. She was sentenced to 22 years. Langston got 18. Others got less. But the damage was done, or maybe undone. The courtroom emptied out slow, like a storm draining off a rooftop. Justice had been served, but justice doesn't always mean peace. It was what came after the headlines that mattered. The cleanup, the rebuilding, the restoration of trust. A month after sentencing, I stood at the same corner where those fake HOA patrol SUVs had tried to cuff me. The sun was rising over my pasture. My niece Claire and her kids were building a tree swing behind the barn. The fence we'd rebuilt still stood strong now with a metal sign bolted in, courtesy of the county protected property, jurisdiction sheriff's office. No private enforcement beyond this line. Some folks might have called it overkill. I called it memory. The backline task force had since merged with our regional sheriff units. We'd begun holding quarterly workshops for residents and HOAs alike. Not to shame real associations, most are harmless, even helpful, but to teach boundaries, legal ones, moral ones, the kind that don't get crossed with fake badges and bully clipboards. One night, we held a candlelight vigil on the courthouse lawn. It wasn't for victims of a disaster. It was for victims of false power. Mrs. Howard spoke, her voice shaky but proud. She told how she'd paid $100 over 3 years in fake yard violations. How she never told her children because she thought maybe she was wrong. How she now walks her dog with her head high. Charles the Air Force vet stood with his sling finally off. He held up the citation that nearly broke his spirit, then tore it in half in front of everyone. Applause rolled through the square like thunder. The most powerful moment, a boy maybe 9 years old came up to me holding a drawing, a badge, a fence, and 3 words written beneath it in crooked pencil, "Real cops protect." I took a knee and asked his name. Malik, he said. You want to be sheriff someday? Malik. He nodded. Hard. You protect people, he said, even from fake people. That night, I framed the drawing and hung it above my desk at the sheriff's office, right next to my badge. A few months later, Evergreen Crest elected a new HOA board, smaller, transparent. They dropped all compliance enforcement initiatives and issued a public apology. Karen's house sat vacant for a while. Then it sold to a young couple who installed raised flower beds and left the gate open for kids to ride bikes through. That's the legacy I wanted. Not fear, freedom. And as for me, I'm still the sheriff. Still patrolling fence lines. Still sipping bad coffee at dawn. But now I do it knowing one thing for sure. No one gets to wear a badge who hasn't earned the weight of it. This wasn't just about HOA overreach. It was about how quickly false power can grow when we stop asking questions. Ask, challenge, verify. Because a clipboard doesn't make someone right. A fake badge doesn't make them law. And silence. That's how empires of fear are built. Share your story. Speak up if you've ever been targeted by fake authority, because the line between fear and freedom is only as strong as the people who hold it. And in this county, we hold it together.